Her bare feet glided over the billionaire's marble floor, her movements whispering rebellion. When he caught her, she froze, but what he did next would change both their lives forever. The Frost mansion stood like a monument to silence. Every chandelier gleamed with precision, every marble tile reflected emptiness. To outsiders, it was the home of power, wealth sculpted into perfection. But to those who lived within its walls, it was a frozen kingdom ruled by a man who forgot what warmth felt like. If this story resonated with you, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because, tomorrow, I will be giving you another story just as crazy as this one. And you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin. Leonard Frost moved through his days with the mechanical rhythm of someone who no longer lived for joy, only for order. His world was spreadsheets, contracts, and meetings that never ended. People bowed when he entered a room, but no one looked him in the eyes long enough to see the man behind the money. He liked it that way. The mansion was quiet when he returned from his late-night board meeting, too quiet. The click of his shoes echoed against the marble like a metronome. He loosened his tie, walked through the grand hallway lined with portraits of ancestors, and felt nothing. No warmth, no laughter, no life. The staff had long retired to their quarters. He preferred it that way, no greetings, no awkward chatter, no one asking how he was. How could they? He didn't even know anymore. But down the servants' corridor, hidden beneath the hum of the night, came something unusual. Music. Soft. Gentle. Like a secret whispered through walls. He frowned, pausing mid-step. No one was supposed to be awake at this hour. Yet there it was again, faint but clear. The haunting melody of a violin mixed with a subtle rhythm of footsteps. Leonard followed the sound, each step deliberate, his curiosity masked beneath habitual coldness. When he reached the edge of the grand ballroom, he saw her. Amara moved like light itself, graceful, barefoot, her eyes closed as if dreaming. Her cleaning uniform clung to her frame, the hem swirling with every turn. The moonlight through the glass ceiling painted her skin in silver, and for once, the cold marble reflected something alive. She wasn't supposed to be there. She wasn't supposed to be anyone, really, just one of the invisible workers who kept the Frost mansion immaculate. Yet in that moment, she was more than a maid. She was freedom given form. Amara had always loved music. Back in her small town, before life turned hard, she had danced for her mother on warm nights under the stars. It was her one refuge from exhaustion and worry. Even now, after hours of scrubbing and polishing, she would sneak into the ballroom to lose herself in movement, a secret she guarded with her life. No one ever came here this late. No one but her. She spun once more, arms lifted, her smile radiant in the solitude. But then she felt it, that stillness that only comes when someone's watching. Her heart stumbled mid-beat. She turned. And froze. Leonard Frost stood in the doorway, half in shadow, his expression unreadable. For a long moment, neither spoke. The air between them thickened, her breath shallow, his sharp and steady. She dropped her gaze instantly, shame burning through her veins. I'm sorry, sir, she stammered, her voice trembling. I was just cleaning. I didn't realize. Cleaning? His voice was low, cold, but not cruel. There was something in it, curiosity, confusion. She nodded quickly, her hands twisting around the edge of her apron. Yes, sir. I was just finishing up and, the floor was slippery, so I. He raised a hand, silencing her. The music still played softly from her old phone resting on a nearby table. A haunting violin piece that didn't belong in his world of numbers and control. Leonard's eyes flicked toward the sound, then back to her. For the first time in years, he didn't know what to say. The maid, Amara, he recalled vaguely from staff records, looked terrified. He could see her shoulders tense, ready to accept whatever punishment she believed was coming. He should have dismissed her right then. Fired her, even. That's what the old Leonard Frost would have done. But something in the way she stood, trembling yet proud, fragile yet glowing with life, disarmed him. He hadn't seen beauty like that in years. He took a slow breath and said quietly, "What is your name?" She blinked, startled. Amara, sir." "Amara," he repeated, as if testing the sound of it. "You work in this house every day?" "Yes, sir. Since last winter." His gaze softened almost imperceptibly. "And this is what you do when no one's watching?" Her throat tightened. She nodded faintly. "Sometimes. I know it's not proper, sir. I just—" He interrupted again, but this time his tone wasn't cold. "Don't apologize." Amara lifted her eyes in surprise. Leonard turned slightly toward the ballroom, where moonlight spilled across the floor. "Continue," he said simply. She froze. "Sir? Continue your dance." Her breath caught. I can't. You're here." "I know." For the first time in so long, his lips curved, not into a smile, exactly, but something close. "I want to see it." The words felt strange even to him. Unplanned. Human. Amara hesitated, torn between fear and disbelief. Then, slowly, she moved to pick up her phone and restarted the track. Her body trembled as she began again, smaller steps this time, uncertain. But as the music swelled, something in her broke free. Her movements grew fluid, fearless. Leonard stood perfectly still, watching. For the first time in years, the mansion wasn't silent. For the first time, Leonard Frost felt something stir beneath the ice. Have you ever seen something so simple, a moment, a gesture, that made you feel alive again? Thought Balloon, tell me in the comments what kind of moment has melted your heart unexpectedly. The next morning, sunlight broke through the tall glass windows, painting streaks of gold across the marble floor where Amara had danced the night before. For the first time since she'd arrived at Frost Mansion, Amara awoke with dread. Every muscle in her body remembered his eyes on her, sharp as winter air, yet strangely human. She replayed every second, from the moment she turned and found him watching to his final, impossible words. Continue. Surely she had dreamt it. If she hadn't, she was ruined. She tied her apron with trembling fingers and hurried through her chores. The other maids whispered about her pale face, but Amara forced a smile. She would pretend nothing had happened. Billionaires didn't notice servants for long, he'd forget her by breakfast. Or so she prayed. Leonard Frost, however, had not forgotten. He sat at the long dining table, untouched breakfast before him. His assistant droned through the day's schedule, calls, meetings, mergers, but Leonard heard none of it. All he could see was the girl spinning beneath moonlight, every turn defying the emptiness he'd built around himself. It unsettled him. He had built an empire on precision and control. There was no room for emotion, no space for mistakes. Yet, somehow, the memory of her bare feet and the whisper of that violin had followed him into daylight. "Cancel my 10 a.m. meeting," he said suddenly. His assistant blinked. "Sir?" "I said cancel it." He rose, grabbed his coffee, and walked away before questions could follow. The mansion's halls seemed different now, not colder, but quieter, expectant. Leonard's footsteps echoed as he made his way to the ballroom once more. It was empty. For a long time, he simply stood there, gazing at the faint prints left on the marble floor. A ghost of her dance. He could almost hear the music again. What was it about her? He had met countless women, polished, elegant, adorned in jewels. But this maid, barefoot and trembling, had moved like she was free. He closed his eyes, and for the first time in years, the corner of his mouth curved into something close to a smile. That night, Amara worked later than usual, polishing the grand staircase. She was halfway through humming a soft tune when she noticed the faint glow spilling from the ballroom doors. Her chest tightened. She should avoid it, finish her work and retreat quietly. Yet curiosity tugged stronger. When she peeked through the doorway, she gasped. The lights were dim, but a single spotlight glowed in the center of the ballroom. The same music from last night played softly from a speaker. And standing there, waiting, was Leonard Frost. He wasn't in a suit this time, only a dark shirt with sleeves rolled back, his tie missing. The change made him look human. "I thought," she swallowed. "I thought I'd been dismissed." He turned to her, his expression unreadable. "If I intended to dismiss you, I would have done it already." Amara hesitated at the threshold. "Why are you here, sir?" "Because," he said quietly, "you left something unfinished." Her heart pounded. "You want me to dance?" He nodded once. "I can't. I shouldn't." He stepped closer, his voice low but gentle. "You think I didn't see what that meant to you? The way you moved, it wasn't rebellion, it was honesty." His words stunned her. She had expected anger, not understanding. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Neither do I," he admitted. "But for one night, I'd like to." She searched his face, looking for mockery. There was none. Only something raw, something almost boyish beneath years of ice. Finally, she nodded. "Just one song." He gestured toward the open space. "Then let the song begin." The music swelled. Amara began slowly, each movement cautious. She could feel his gaze, not heavy, but curious. She twirled once, twice, her body remembering joy. The air shimmered with something unspoken. Leonard took a step forward, drawn by instinct. When the track faded, silence fell, not awkward, but charged. He exhaled. "I haven't heard that piece in years," he said softly. "My wife used to play it on the piano." Amara froze. "Your wife?" He nodded. "She died 5 years ago. After that, I couldn't stand the sound of music in this house. I fired the pianist. Sold the instruments." Her eyes softened. "I'm sorry, sir." He smiled faintly, a broken smile, but real. "So was I." For a moment, neither moved. Then, he said, almost to himself, "Funny how grief steals the light from everything. You spend so long in the dark that when something shines, it hurts to look." Amara's throat tightened. "Sometimes light doesn't come back the way we expect, sir." He looked at her, the weight of her words sinking in. "No," he said quietly. "Sometimes it comes wearing an apron." Her cheeks flushed. "You shouldn't say things like that." "Why not?" "It's true." His tone wasn't flirtation, it was gratitude, reverence. The kind that comes when a soul long frozen begins to thaw. The next day, whispers filled the staff quarters. The master spoke to a maid. He asked her to dance again. Amara ignored them as best she could, but deep down, fear bloomed beside something she couldn't name, hope. That evening, when she entered the ballroom to clean, a single note rested on the grand piano. "If music heals you, let it play. LF." She stared at the note for a long time before pressing play on her phone. The same melody filled the room once more. But this time, she wasn't alone in the echo. Days folded into weeks, and the music returned to Frost Mansion like a ghost rediscovering its home. At first it was faint, a few notes from a radio in the kitchen, the echo of a humming Maid, but soon the halls carried rhythm again. Even Leonard's footsteps seemed to soften in tempo. No one could quite explain the change. They only whispered about it. "He's different lately. Did you see him smile at breakfast? It's that new maid, Amara." Amara heard the whispers everywhere she went. They followed her down the servants' corridor, clung to her when she polished the banisters, hissed through the kitchen doors. She tried to ignore them, but the words stung. In a house built on hierarchy, being noticed by the master could mean ruin. She avoided the ballroom for 2 nights, afraid that the spell had been broken, afraid that she'd imagined it all. Yet on the 3rd night, curiosity betrayed her again. When she stepped into the ballroom, she found the lights dimmed and a record spinning on the turntable. A soft jazz melody floated through the air. Leonard stood near the window, hands in his pockets. "You're late," he said, but his voice was warm. "I wasn't sure you'd want me here, sir." He turned, meeting her gaze. "It's Leonard. When we're alone, call me Leonard." Her heart stumbled. "I couldn't, sir, I mean, Mr. Frost." He smiled faintly. "Then perhaps we should both learn something new. You can call me Leonard, and I'll try to remember what listening feels like." The simple kindness in his words melted another layer of fear. She nodded, almost shyly. "All right, Leonard." They began to talk, about small things at first, the music, the weather, the art that lined the mansion walls. He asked her what she dreamed of. She hesitated. "Dreams don't fit people like me, sir." "They do," he said quietly. "They just get smaller when no one believes in them." That night she told him about her childhood, the tiny town, the mother who danced with her under the stars, the years of hardship that led her here. Leonard listened, really listened, for the first time in half a decade. He didn't interrupt, didn't command. He simply stood near her and felt the rhythm of her story fill the emptiness inside him. When she finished, silence lingered. Then, gently, he asked, "Would you teach me to dance?" Her eyes widened. "You're joking. I haven't danced since my wedding." He extended his hand. "Show me." She hesitated only a moment before placing her small, trembling hand in his. His palm was cold at first, then slowly warmed. They began to move, awkwardly, clumsily, until laughter escaped her lips. He hadn't heard laughter like that in years. It hit him like sunlight after storm clouds. But laughter, in a house full of servants, carries far. By morning, rumors had hardened into accusations. In the servants' hall, the head housekeeper cornered Amara. "You've crossed a line," Mrs. Hale hissed. "Do you think men like him care about girls like you? He'll tire of you, and you'll be out on the streets." Amara's cheeks flushed crimson. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly. Keep to your duties, or I'll have no choice but to inform Mr. Frost's Board of Trustees. They won't tolerate scandal." Amara's voice cracked. "Please, Mrs. Hale." But the woman was already gone, heels clicking like a gavel. Leonard noticed Amara's silence that evening. She moved like someone bracing against rain. "What happened?" he asked. "People talk," she said softly. "They think things." He studied her face. "And what do you think?" "I think," she whispered, "that I don't belong in a world where kindness is mistaken for sin." Her words pierced him deeper than she knew. For the first time, he realized what he had done, not by speaking, but by seeing her. His attention had painted a target on her back. "I never meant to cause you pain," he said. "I know." She turned away. But intentions don't change whispers. He watched her leave, the sound of her retreating footsteps echoing through the same marble he'd once called perfection. The silence returned, heavier than before. The next day, Leonard called a staff meeting, something he hadn't done in years. Every servant stood in the ballroom, confused, nervous. Amara kept her eyes on the floor. Leonard entered, immaculate as always, but there was something softer in his demeanor. "I've heard the talk," he began, his tone calm but firm. "Let me be clear, Miss Amara has done nothing wrong. She is valued here for her work, her honesty, and her spirit. Anyone who says otherwise will answer to me. Gasps rippled through the crowd. No one could remember the last time Leonard Frost had spoken of anyone with such conviction. Then he turned toward Amara, his voice gentling. That will be all. When the others had gone, he approached her. Did that help? Tears glimmered in her eyes. It helped more than you know. He hesitated, then added, I can't stand the thought of this house swallowing another good soul. Not again. She looked up at him. You mean your wife? He nodded. Her name was Clara. After she died, I buried everything that reminded me of her, even the music. I thought silence would protect me. I was wrong. Amara reached out before she could stop herself, her fingers brushing his sleeve. You can't bury pain, Leonard. You can only dance through it. The contact lasted a heartbeat, maybe less, but it was enough to send a shock of warmth through both of them. He whispered, then teach me how. Over the next nights, the lessons continued. They moved to soft waltzes, then faster rhythms, laughter slipping between the steps. The mansion glowed again, not from chandeliers, but from something alive between them. But each moment of closeness carried its own fear. One evening, as the record ended, Leonard caught her gaze lingering too long. She looked away quickly. Amara, he said softly, what are you afraid of? Hope, she murmured. It's beautiful until it breaks. His jaw tightened. Then maybe it's time we stop breaking it. He wanted to say more, that he needed her light, that she'd reminded him what breathing felt like, but the words stayed trapped behind years of restraint. Instead, he turned away, leaving her with the echo of unspoken things. In her small room that night, Amara pressed her hands against her chest. Her heart beat faster than ever. She couldn't let herself fall. Not for him, not for the man the world called untouchable. But somewhere inside her, a voice whispered, he's already fallen. Winter settled over Frost Mansion with quiet cruelty. Snow glazed the windows, turning the gardens into white oceans. Inside, preparations for the annual Frost Foundation Gala consumed every servant. It was the event of the year, the night when CEOs, politicians, and socialites came to praise Leonard Frost's empire. For Amara, it was torture. Every corridor echoed with gossip, every passing glance reminded her that she did not belong. Still, she worked harder than anyone, polishing silver until her reflection blurred. If she kept her head down, she might survive the night unseen. But fate had never been kind to people who wanted to disappear. The gala began with chandeliers blazing and violins sighing. Guests drifted through the ballroom like swans on ice, their laughter sharp as crystal. Leonard stood near the stage, a glass of champagne untouched in his hand. He'd worn his finest suit, but the fabric felt heavy, as if it belonged to another man. His assistant approached. Everything's perfect, sir. Shall I cue the press photos? Leonard didn't answer. His eyes had found Amara across the room, carrying a silver tray. The sight struck him like a heartbeat, her lowered gaze, the calm dignity in her every step. He remembered the first time he saw her dance, how life had flooded back into the halls. Tonight, the music was here again, but none of it reached him. When the band shifted into a slow waltz, Leonard's pulse quickened. He could almost feel the ghost of Clara's hand in his. Yet when he looked again, he saw only Amara, standing at the edge of the crowd, watching others glide. Without thinking, he set down his glass and began to move toward her. Gasps followed him. Billionaires did not cross dance floors toward maids. Amara froze as he stopped before her. Sir, she whispered, eyes wide. People are watching. Let them, he said. His voice was calm, certain. Would you give me this dance? Leonard, please. But he had already taken her hand. The music swelled, and they began to move. Every eye in the ballroom turned. The whispers came fast, sharp as daggers. Scandal. Improper. He's lost his mind. Amara's heart raced. They'll destroy you for this, she breathed. Maybe, he said, guiding her into a slow turn. But they can't destroy what they never understood. He looked down at her, his expression open, vulnerable. When I saw you dance that night, I remembered who I was before grief made me stone. You gave me back my music. Her eyes glistened. And what about me, Leonard? When this night ends, who will I be? He stopped moving. The world around them blurred, voices fading beneath the melody. You'll be the reason this house feels alive again. And if you'll let me, I'll never let you fade into the background again. Cameras flashed. Someone hissed Leonard's name, warning him of the damage. He didn't care. He bent slightly, close enough that only she could hear. I loved once and lost, he said. I thought that was the end. But then you danced. Tears slipped down her cheeks. She tried to speak, but he shook his head. Don't, he whispered. Just dance. So she did, barefoot, as she had that first night. The crowd parted, stunned, as the maid spun freely in the heart of the billionaire's ballroom. Her movements were joy and sorrow, rebellion and grace, all at once. Leonard watched, every heartbeat breaking another piece of his armor. When the music ended, silence thundered. Then came the applause, tentative at first, then spreading through the room like rain after drought. For the first time, Leonard smiled without restraint. He reached for her hand again and bowed. Later, when the guests had gone and the last echo of applause had faded, Amara stood alone by the grand window. Snowflakes fell thick against the glass. You shouldn't have done that, she said when she heard his footsteps. You'll lose everything. Leonard joined her, eyes soft. Then it's about time I started choosing what matters. He turned toward the dark garden. I built this mansion to keep the world out. But you brought the world back in. Do you regret dancing with me? Amara shook her head. No. But I'm afraid. Of what? Of believing you mean it. He smiled gently. Then I'll spend the rest of my life proving that I do. Outside, the snow kept falling, blanketing the frozen world in white. Inside, warmth flickered at last, small, fragile, but real. Morning light filtered through sheer curtains, soft and forgiving. The mansion felt strange now, not hushed and cold, but quietly alive, as if the walls themselves had exhaled. Amara woke early, expecting chaos. She was ready for dismissal, for scandal splashed across headlines. Instead she found the staff whispering in confusion, not anger. Some even smiled. Mrs. Hale, the strict housekeeper, met her in the corridor. The older woman's face, usually carved from granite, seemed uncertain. He's asked to see you, she said simply, and stepped aside. Amara's pulse thundered as she crossed the hallway toward Leonard's study. He stood by the window, coat unbuttoned, snowlight outlining him. On the desk lay a stack of documents, resignations from board members who disapproved of last night's scene. I suppose you've heard, he said. Half the board wants me removed. Her heart sank. Because of me. He turned, his eyes gentle. No. Because of who I used to be. They liked the man without a heart. I don't. He motioned to a second folder. This is for you. She frowned. For me? Your employment contract. I'm voiding it. Her breath caught. You're firing me? Leonard shook his head. I'm freeing you. You don't belong in uniform, Amara. You belong on a stage. He slid an envelope across the desk, a grant application already signed, stamped, and approved in her name. The Frost Foundation will sponsor your first dance studio downtown. You'll teach anyone who wants to move again, children, veterans, people who've forgotten what joy feels like. Tears welled instantly. "Leonard, I can't take this." "Yes, you can," he said softly. "Because you gave it to me first." She stared at him, searching for words, but none came. Weeks passed. The world buzzed with gossip, but stories fade when kindness doesn't. The press that once sneered at scandal began printing headlines about the billionaire who built a studio for hope. In an old warehouse reborn with mirrors and light, Amara danced again, this time surrounded by children laughing and strangers clapping off-beat. And every Friday evening, when the last class ended, a familiar figure would appear at the door. Leonard never said much. He'd simply watch from the back, sleeves rolled, eyes full of quiet pride. One night, she pulled him into the circle of music. "You promised to keep learning," she teased. "I did." He tried a step, stumbled, and she caught him. Their laughter filled the room, unpolished, human, perfect. Later, as the students left, Leonard lingered near the doorway. "You've turned this place into something extraordinary." Amara wiped her hands on a towel. "We did." He met her eyes. "You know, for years I thought love was supposed to look like perfection. But maybe it just looks like two people not giving up on warmth." She smiled through tears. "And maybe home isn't marble and chandeliers." He stepped closer. "Maybe it's wherever you're dancing." He drew her into an embrace, no hesitation this time. The snow outside had begun again, soft flakes swirling past the window, but inside, every heartbeat hummed with music. Months later, the mansion reopened as the Frost Center for Music and Movement. The once silent ballroom now echoed with violins, laughter, and the shuffle of feet. Where portraits of solemn ancestors once hung, photographs of smiling students lined the walls. On opening night, Leonard stood beside Amara on the small stage. 5 years ago, he told the crowd, I thought silence was strength. Then someone reminded me that strength can also be grace. He looked at her. She saved me with a dance. Applause swelled, lights glittered. As the music began, Amara turned to him. Ready? He smiled. Always. They moved together under the chandeliers, no longer master and maid, but equals, partners, two souls who had learned that even the coldest hearts can thaw when touched by courage. The mansion that once froze the world now pulsed with life. Sometimes redemption begins with something as small as a single brave step. What's one act of kindness or courage that changed the course of your life? Share your story below, your words might be the spark someone else needs. 1 year later. Spring sunlight spilled through the high windows of the Frost Center for Music and Movement, illuminating dust motes that danced like tiny fireflies. The old mansion no longer felt haunted. Every corridor pulsed with rhythm, laughter in one room, violin practice in another, the faint shuffle of dancing feet in the great hall. A banner fluttered above the entrance, Frost Foundation Annual Showcase, celebrating a year of movement and hope. Amara stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the edge of her soft blue gown. She barely recognized the woman staring back, confident, graceful, alive. The scars of fear that once clouded her gaze were gone, replaced by quiet strength. Behind her, Leonard appeared in the doorway, holding 2 cups of tea. His hair had grown a little grayer, but his eyes shone warmer than ever. You look, he paused, searching for the right word. Like a wish that came true. She smiled softly. I still get nervous before every performance. That's how you know it still matters, he said, handing her a cup. Their hands brushed. Even after a year, that small touch still sent ripples through her heart. Downstairs, the great hall was filling fast. Children in handmade costumes whispered lines backstage. Elderly veterans from the movement therapy program sat near the front, beaming with pride. Journalists who once mocked Leonard's scandal now called his work a revolution of grace. When the lights dimmed, Leonard took his seat beside the stage. Amara stepped into the center, barefoot, the same way she had that first night, but this time, not alone. A small group of children joined her, forming a circle. The music began, slow, tender piano chords echoing through the hall. Her movements told the story of a girl who found her courage in a place of silence, and of a man who found love again through forgiveness. The children mirrored her every gesture, reaching, rising, spinning. When the final note faded, the audience erupted in applause. After the show, Leonard took the stage. "A year ago," he said, voice thick with emotion, "this house was empty. I thought my life was about control, achievement, isolation. Then someone came along who refused to let silence win." He turned to Amara. "She taught me that love doesn't make us weak, it makes us whole." Tears welled in her eyes as the crowd rose to their feet, clapping until the hall trembled. When he stepped down, she met him halfway. "You didn't have to say all that," she whispered. He smiled. "Yes, I did. For every person who's forgotten how to begin again." Then, without hesitation, he kissed her, softly, reverently, before hundreds of witnesses who no longer saw scandal, only story. The audience burst into applause once more, not for wealth or spectacle, but for humanity. Months later, the Frost Center had expanded, new branches opening in cities across the country, funded not by greed, but by generosity. Amara and Leonard traveled together, speaking about art, loss, and the power of compassion. One evening, after a long workshop in a small town, they walked by the river. The setting sun turned the water to gold. "Do you ever miss the old mansion?" Amara asked. He chuckled. "Sometimes. But only because it reminds me where I started. Where we started." She leaned into him, head against his shoulder. "If someone told me back then that I'd be standing here beside you, I would have laughed." He looked down at her with a soft smile. "And if someone told me a maid would save my soul, I would have called them mad." They both laughed quietly, the sound mixing with the gentle rush of the river. As dusk deepened, they stopped to watch a group of children dancing barefoot on the grass, their laughter ringing through the evening air. Amara's eyes glistened. "Look at them. That's what freedom looks like." Leonard wrapped an arm around her. "You gave them that. You gave me that." She shook her head. "We gave it to each other." He kissed her forehead, whispering, "Then let's never stop." Above them, the first stars appeared, tiny lights scattered across the sky, like a reminder that even after darkness, there's always something waiting to shine. That night, back at the mansion, Amara wandered alone into the grand ballroom. The chandeliers reflected the stars outside. She pressed her bare feet to the polished floor, closed her eyes, and began to dance, slow, serene, full of gratitude. Leonard watched from the doorway, a quiet smile curving his lips. He didn't interrupt. He simply listened, to the music, to the heartbeat of the woman who had taught him to live again. When she finally stopped, breathless and radiant, he stepped toward her. "You know," he said softly, "the first time I saw you here, I thought you were an angel I didn't deserve." "And now?" she teased. "Now," he said, taking her hand, "I know heaven doesn't belong above the clouds. It lives right here." He guided her hand to his chest. His heartbeat thudded strong and steady beneath her palm. And together, they began to dance again, not as master and servant, not as savior and saved, but as equals who had turned sorrow into symphony. The snow had melted, the frost had thawed, and love had learned to live again. Every heart carries a season of winter, but spring always comes for those brave enough to keep dancing. What lesson from this story resonated with you the most? Forgiveness, courage, or second chances? Share your thoughts below. Your words could warm someone else's winter. Tulip. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.